Good afternoon. Welcome to C&T Collectibles. I am C and hope everyone is doing well today. This is our weekly chart roundup, chart blast, whatever we want to call it. I haven't figured out a good name, and I probably won't. So, the fundamentals will give you an opinion of what should be happening, but price is truth. So let's just see what's happening in some of our favorite sports cards, and we'll start off as always with Mike Trout in the PSA 10. And so, again, we were looking for after this big move up here. The price relative gave us a lot of these targets here, and we were able to ride it up. And then when it started to crack a little bit, you saw that there was a disconnect between the 10 and the 9, and honestly, just the low volume move said, you know what, this could be the top in here, and we wanted to come down to a level that was right in here. And so, actually, some lucky person snaked an auction right at this previous level here. It looks like right around that $3,500 mark. So. That would have been nice. Figured there was a possibility to get down here in the market since that that's a little too cheap, and you quickly came back up into this level. So this is kind of your range right now. You're looking at $5,500 on the upside, and you're 4,000, 4,250, 4,350 on the downside. So if you get lucky down here, then buyers are going to come in very, very quickly. So I think this is probably more realistic. PSA 10, $4,900. PSA 9, $1,950, holding up much better. And I'm seeing this in a lot of cards where the 9s are holding up a lot better than the 10s. And so I think maybe people are just looking at those 10s saying there's way too much profit, but the people that bought the 9s just like holding the card. They're more of the collector, and they're just going to hang on. And so those prices are more stable, and they're looking at them. And maybe that's why the disconnect is, but I'd be interested to hear other theories as well. So the momentum for Mike Trout is starting to turn up just a little bit here, which is good to see. So as you have this, as you have more buying come in, if that momentum starts to build back up, then you could see these prices push back up to what should be $5,700, $6,000, something in that area. And again, with the PS9 holding in there and the PSA 10 at that $4,900 level, it's not that far away, and I think that's probably pretty reasonable to come up and maybe break its way out just a little bit here. But we're in the season now, so no more speculation. Mike Trout's gonna have to prove himself, I guess. So Lou Bob does have to prove himself here. 155 on the upside, $100 on the downside. You're right at that current price, $99.50. So you're right at that lower boundary here. So I think last time we looked at him was here and said that's a buy. And that worked out, and he struggles once he gets up to the 140, 155 area here, and so you're back here again, and you can go back pretty far, and you can see that this has been a buying opportunity, and I don't think and that's not going to change until it does, honestly. So we'll see what happens here. If he has a good week, then you can see this, but you can see how the price action is kind of thinning out just a little bit. It doesn't take much to push it up or down, so it's very news driven. So I don't like that part of it. I prefer to see a lot of buying and a lot of confidence. So it wouldn't take much for it to shoot to the top of the range or back to the bottom. But right now, your risk reward does favor upside on Lou Bob. So if he has a couple more stolen bases and a home run, then off you go. But I'd be more convinced if there's a lot of buying or we had sustained moves up here or below there. So. All right, Mookie Betts in the nearer term over the last year or so. You can see that as Chrome. This is his Bowman Chrome base, his prospect card. Well, I don't know. It's not really his prospect card. It says, prospect. It says right there. We'll go with prospect card. Let's say PSA is right here. So uptrend has been broken in the near term, and so there's plenty of buying in here. And so not an insignificant move. $740 was your high. And breaking this trend right here, you're currently at $450. So that's it's a $200 move from here to here. It doesn't seem like much, but it is. And a further move into this range, you're talking about $250, maybe $300. Call between $200 and $300. So there could be some further downside. Now it's important to look at this stuff in multiple time frames. So here is the longer term time frame on this card, and you see that there's a decently defined range here. You really want to see multiple touches, but we've got a couple here. So, but you're at the bottom of the range. So this looks, here's your closer view showed the break of this line here, but now you're at the bottom of this range. So this is actually a pretty interesting spot for this card here. And again, you have a lot of buying in here, so I think this makes sense at some point. But for now, you can see someone step in and purchase it. So. We'll have to watch that one closely, but I think if you get a move back up into this area, that's another opportunity to sell because unless it can get back up into this area, but if it stalls right in here, then the next transactions could bring it back down into this area. And again, I think any move up is an opportunity to perhaps sell this card. Again, longer term with Mookie, the nines are holding up a lot better. So longer term with Mookie, it's a buy, but I think in the high end, people are just going to be a little bit quicker with the trigger to try and take some profits, especially if anybody bought up in the 750 area and see that it's sitting down at 450 right now. They might say that's enough. So Gavin Lux, this is a guy we talked about over the winter. I was able to pick up a couple things at a decent price here, and he's moved up decently with a decent start. The whole thesis behind it was this is a 70 grade prospect with a 60, 65 grade hit tool, and you don't forget how to use that for the most part. So trending up nicely here. Tops and bottoms are well defined. It was a quick move to the top in low volume and quickly came back down to this area here. So this is probably a decent area. You're talking about $40 for a PSA 10 for a guy that could have a pretty decent run on a very excellent team here. So that looks like giving you another opportunity to perhaps pick up a Gavin Lux. All right, Ronald Acuna Jr. Excuse me. I choke on I talk too fast. I breathe in too much air and I choke on air. What are you going to do here? So, all right, other than not choke. Top of the range. And so he's hanging around the top of the range here and just really struggling to get above that. And you can see this PSA 10, $195, $77 for the PSA 9. So the 9s are holding in really, really well, and the PSA 10 probably presents a better value, but you can see that the momentum is turning over and down. So there's maybe a little bit more downside here. But he's having a terrific start to the season, which is also kind of interesting because, as well as he's doing this year, if he still can't get his prices going, what's it going to take? So I think, so between the two, better play is not going to do it, so maybe it is lower prices. So you can see with the momentum down in the top of the range, there's probably some more downside to this card, but people are pretty happy to hold those PSA 9s. Again, pretty cheap entertainment and terrific player, so you should be looking to acquire, but I think you might get a little better shot at that one. Same with his 2018 update brother, Juan Soto. You had your compression and your breakout, and now you've got a pretty steady uptrend. And this is the PSA 9. Again, there's just that disconnect. This was implied something like a $350, $360 price, which was kind of the high point for the Soto PSA 10, 380, I think was the number. But this one's hanging in okay. You can see that there was a high price of 160. That was just one sale. So I would say, the 140 area is more realistic. And so you're off $20 from there, but that's not anything, that's not at the end of the world by any stretch here. And the prices are chugging up here. So people are holding onto these and ditching the high value stuff here. And so we'll see if that is persistent. We have to rethink our relationship between 9s and 10s, but this is a small sample size, so not yet. But anyways, the trend is still up on this one, and it's at a decent spot where a lot of people are interested in buying that card. So Fernando Tatis looked at him last week and said, with this compression, you had your breakdown and a retest, and this is probably a decent spot to sell. Somebody gave you a gift with another sale, kind of snuck into the range, but if you can't stay in there, then typically you'll move the other way pretty quick, and that's exactly what happened. So now you're down in this area. So this is what we said is, with this breakdown, it's like you're probably looking for something in here. If he gets off to a slow start or injured, which he's injured, you could see moves down to that $150 area. So his injury is not as bad as initially feared, it sounds like. Maybe it's a 10-day DL stint, and if he comes back, all be well. So this is an interesting spot right here. There's been plenty of buying here to support this. So right now, here's your reward is up in here, and your risk is really, it's not really there. Now, if it drops below this, then you have no reward, and your risk is down to that 150 area. So tread carefully, but this seems like an interesting spot for Fernando Tatis. But yeah, that was our kind of our sell breaking out of that thing on the last one. And so it was a little bit of a move, but move nonetheless. So again, you look at the PSA 9s, $96, and so that's implying something. What was that? What was that PSA 10? $235, and so yeah, so the 9 looking at more of a $300 card for the most part, and that's just kind of trading sideways. So I think people are just really scooping up the 9s are fine with the 9. So yeah, those are hanging in just fine relative to a lot of other cards here. So it did have its high print of $125. So it's come off 20%, 30% or something like that. So not insignificant, but the dollar amount is a lot more palatable at this price level, and it's hanging in well. So all right, Alex Bregman off to a very, very nice start this year. Liked him a lot over the off season. Said probably a little too hated here, and he's a top 5 player, and he's showing that so far. But this is a little too much here. So you're at the top of the range where there's been some selling and taking place before. So it was gradual, so we'll see what happens. But there's not a lot of people willing to step in this area here, so you could see something back down to that $100 level here. Currently at $140, so it's not insignificant. You're talking about it could be $30-$40 move down in a hurry here. But if he keeps playing the way he's playing, again in a couple of years, he's going to justify a lot higher prices overall. So this may prove to be in the short term a little too much, but I think longer term it depends on health and performance. But if he stays healthy and performs the way that he's done 3 of the past 4 years, this is cheap for Alex Bregman. But there's a lot of buying in this area here, in that $90 to $100 area. So if this does come off a little bit, really, I wouldn't do anything here, but kind of scope it in this area if you're looking for that high grade chrome example. And honestly, chrome's what is the gem rate on those? So they're pretty high. If you have chromes, you're probably okay, and unless you want the sticker in the slab. So, all right, Clayton Kershaw had a monster move, very thin volume, and you don't chase those. I mean, these are nice, solid uptrends when you have a lot of buying, and then all of a sudden things just start to thin out. And this is where a lot of people started to speculate, kind of last fall. You just had things kind of go nuts, and then right after Christmas, towards the beginning of the year, this is when things really started to get crazy here. And so, like most cards, just leave it. When it does this stuff, it's going to come back to some sort of level. Here's kind of your range before, and it's right back to the top of that area here. So now you can start to get interested again. So $1,600, not so much. $1,000. Perhaps that looks a little bit more interesting if you need a gem. Clayton Kershaw, this is a pretty decent area here. Could even go a little bit lower to that $800 level here, but it's so thin, who knows? I mean, someone could buy it right back up into $1,200, or again, it could get sold back down to $800, and that could be the next sale. So it's tough to. It's a lot easier to kind of figure things out when there's a lot of people on board and smooth this up with these wild swings. But it is coming into an area where if you're looking for that card, you might want to pay attention. The 9. Again, you look at that $415 price tag, which would imply, $1,250, close roughly, for the PSA 10. Pretty nice uptrend here. So your tops and bottoms are well defined. So the top is coming off again here. So you can give it a little bit of time, and maybe it comes down to $300, which would be roughly more in line with where that PSA 10 is right now. It's a pretty healthy uptrend. There's a lot more buying here. I think there's a lot more interest in the 9s, or maybe there's just a lot more 9s out there. That could be the case, certainly. So Miggy Cabrera, I heard about, someone was talking about it last week. It's like, pretty extended at this point here, and, give it some room, and it came back down to the bottom of this range here. So, not insignificant. $400 down to $300 is a pretty decent, savings there. So anyways, so you've got your tops pretty well defined, and you're right around that top as well, again here. So this is where selling is kind of taking place, but the prices are compressing, and the buyers are coming in quicker and quicker. And so as that happens, what you do see is a breakout. And now with Mickey coming up on 3,000 hits and 500 home runs, probably going to happen in the same year here. These prices could go quite a bit more. I mean, this is a Hall of Famer, so those prices he could stand a higher price as well. So, but wait for that to kind of happen. So hopefully, what you would see is a break, then a comeback to this level here where people are like, oh my God, I missed this price. They've been watching these, and just like, oh, I'm gonna wait, and then it starts to get away, and it comes back, and like, I missed it, and then get back in, and then so hopefully you would have a chance to buy it in here, and then off to the races. So, but yeah, those prices are compressing up nicely, but still pretty wild moves, wild price swings in there. So, all right, another Hall of Famer, Albert Pujols, and so you can see how these wild moves just don't end well here. You have a lot. This buying and selling is kind of similar here in terms of volume. But the prices are just, they're just manic. So, you have something from $350 is the PSA 9 up to $800 for the next sale. It's like, come on, man, I don't want any part of that one. So it's come back down to a level where if you can get it between that $300 and $500 level, that's probably more sustainable, and it's coming back into that area here. So right at the bottom of the trends here. So that's a pretty interesting spot. But again, with such low volume moves here, could be here. I don't know, but it's at least getting interesting for that card. And there's always raw, where you could buy it for a lot cheaper, and then you don't give a crap if it goes from 100 to 150. It's not as big a deal as 600 to 900. And so at least in dollar terms, percentage terms, it's the same. But dollar terms, it's a little less. Make your heart race a little bit less. All right, Justin Verlander here. So looked at the big pop last week and just took it to the top of the range and quickly back down to the bottom here. So getting in, that's the 10, the 9s. $80 to $100. I haven't looked at them for a little while. Just said the heck with I'm buying a raw copy. So, but yeah, bottom of the range here. So you're getting close to an interesting spot for Justin Verlander. We'll see what happens with any kind of news, rehab, whatever, but just focus on long term. That's a Hall of Famer that you can get for like $300, which is a pretty good price. So, all right, a couple football names here. Kyler Murray looked at the Raw a few weeks ago and had a nice little breakout, but the PS 810 is struggling a bit here. Like Joe Namath, struggling. $600. I like to keep my references current, people. $600, it's really having a hard time with here. You had your monster move up, and it came back into this range, and now you're just trying to figure out, what is that range here? 600 looks to be the high point here. You're currently at about $507. And looks like it's kind of at the bottom of this trend here, but honestly, you may get another crack at this $400 level if this breaks down. So you're closer to the high end of the range than the bottom end of the range, all things considered. Here's your bottom, here's your top. So be patient, and if it sneaks back above here, then you're going to start to see some chasing, but that has to happen first. So with Kyler, I think if you're patient, you can maybe get another crack back in this area. So. Justin Jefferson. Now we're getting the big money, $25 card. I'm a Vikings fan. I like them here. So prices are trending down, and honestly, between $20 and $15, this is the route. Who cares? But I think long-term prospects for him are good, very good. If we can get a quarterback, nothing completely against Cousins, but I just think he's paid too much for what he does. So, but yeah, coming into this range here, if you're getting him for $15, why the heck not? I mean, and then. You just buy a bunch of them then if you're willing to do something. If it gets back up to $30, you doubled your money. So, all right, and one more is Josh Allen, and really just some monster moves here. Really crazy stuff. And so you had your monster move, and they came back and held trend really, really nicely, and then just a monster spike. Just a couple of moves, a couple of sales right up to here. And that is probably too quick. So if you want to count these as tops, or if you want to look at these. 1, 2, 3 touches are probably a little bit more reliable. So maybe it can go up a little bit more, but here's your upside and here's your downside. So I think it's not as favorable, but man, it's a really nice run. But I think you could see some profit taking come in here in fairly short order and knock it back down to call it $900 or something like that. So who knows? We'll see. But, risk reward not favorable. All right, Jordan PSA 8, going back to the well here. So, hey, did the bubble just break? Yeah, look for a move back down to here. Yeah, there you go. So, all right, momentum is still down, but there's a lot of buying here, a lot of interest in this card, and there has been the whole way here. So we'll see what happens. But if you do get your way back into this area, which is $7,000, $8,000, I mean I think a lot of people start to step up. But there's a lot of people that are interested in here, and this is probably close enough for government work. So all right, we'll see what happens on this one here. But really like to see that momentum start to flatten out and turn back up, and then I have a little bit more confidence that this thing's going to go right now. So you're just kind of messing with this area right here, and it's still a decent range here. Its current price is $11,000, and down here is $9,000, and that's $2,000. I don't know about you, but for me, that's not insignificant. So there's still some room here. So I would really like to see that momentum start to turn up, like we had back in here. But so we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be just kind of a frustrating range for a lot of these cards in the near future. All right, Stephen Curry. It's the real one, not the fake 2020 Prism one. So. Prices are trending down on this one here, pretty well defined range here. So top, and now it's coming back down to the bottom if you get in here. This only goes on for so long. Sometimes at some point you just run out of room. So maybe he busts out, which is could be extremely likely. But I mean, you're talking about $4,000 on the upside, $3,000 on the downside. Current price $27. So it's a sickening range. And that's just the PSA 9, but buyers tend to step up in this area for now. If it leaks below this, then you're heading down into an area where there's a lot of people interested. And if you go above this, again, it's kind of thin, but it could be a couple people just push those prices back up. But for now, you just play the range. So there's your bottom, there's your top, here's your bottom, there's your top, and here's your bottom. So there's probably a little bit more reward than risk, at least in the near term. And Victor Oladipo, who is here for name purposes. Oladipo, just fun to say. It rolls off the tongue. You had your price compression up to the top of the range here, and then a breakdown. And there was not a lot you could do about this one. So you're sitting at the bottom of the range and be like, oh, okay, hey, bottom of the range. Typically when prices compress going up, that means that they're going to reverse. And then like the Steph Curry, prices compressing going down, it means you're going to kind of break to the top side there. So, you favor downside on something like this, but you have to wait for it to break. And then the next sale just broke it. It brought it all the way down here. So you're around $500, call it 300, and then boom, just down to a little over 200. And that's a lot of sideways action here. So your range basically is 275, 280 on the upside, about $150 on the downside. It's coming close to that downside here. So looks interesting enough if you are looking for a PSA 10 of that particular player. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of sideways action, and until it breaks one way or another, you're not going to know precisely what to do. And even then, you're not going to know precisely what to do because dealing with humans, people, no one knows what humans do. So, all right, Tiger Woods documentary comes out. You had a lot of buying interest, pretty cheap entertainment here for a long time. And the documentary comes out, and a couple of sales push it way the heck up, and it's like, just leave that because it's going to come back to a natural level kind of in here, in this range, right around, I don't know what those exact numbers are, but kind of that square here, and tagged this perfectly and said, okay, buy it, that's close enough. And then he got into a car wreck, and some jerk said, oh my gosh, mate, what if he doesn't make it, or they cut off his leg or something like that. It's like, okay, teach you a lesson here, buddy. And so it quickly came back into this range, and now you're into this range again, where I think people are just going to kind of accept that $500 or so is kind of that kind of the bottom of that range, and they're just going to step in and buy. So there's plenty of buying here, and there's plenty of buying here, and good on you for not chasing this one, for around $2,000. Good for waiting for it to come back. This is where you could have had it, and hopefully maybe one of you, maybe you bought it, maybe that was your sale. That'd be terrific. Good for you. You're learning, and but otherwise you're kind of drifting back down to this area, and it seems like a reasonable spot. So be patient. Patient is rewarded. And I appreciate your patience and letting me ramble on this long. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you get something out of it, great. But I'm just trying to be, teach you a little bit about this stuff, and mostly just a couple minutes of enjoyment. So anyways, have a great rest of the day. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.